How's it going, everybody? Wherever you listen to this podcast right here. This is episode 113 of the TempahZone podcast with your host, me, Amir Max, and that's all facts. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, after a 9-10 month hiatus, we are back. The podcast is back. If you want to know why I was on a hiatus, life, man. I had to live and step away from stuff. But if you really want to know, hit me up, y'all. I'm always available on my Instagram at AmirMax1, and we can chop it up. I like talking to the people. But yeah, with this first episode back, I wanted to have somebody on who's just way of moving and music, of course, I really mess with. This is somebody who I've very glad I've met through this industry. You can meet a lot of funny people in this game, but you can also meet a lot of dope people in this game. And this is somebody who I've definitely been watching their moves and glad to have worked with, and definitely plan on working with more. This man has a ton of music under his belt, 3 albums, and I checked on Spotify. It's just dope to see my man doing his thing. I got Vincent Tesoro in the Zoom building. Vinny, how's it going, dog?
Good, man. I'm blessed. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm so thrilled to be here for the second coming, you could say.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, this was definitely a big hiatus, and so I'm just trying to hit the ground running and make sure I have somebody on to start it off correctly, man. So I'm glad you agreed to it and didn't shy away from the first episode back. 'Cause I can see some people saying no to that. So
yeah, I mean, I'll be your mic check.
Make sure I'm interviewing correctly and make sure everything's all good. Yeah.
The team.
Yeah, I got to knock the rust off. So, oh man, that's hilarious, man. But yeah, man, let's just get right into it, dog. When I listen to your music, I can definitely hear the maturity. I can hear the honesty and the vulnerability in it. But obviously, in this music game, it takes time to get to this point. You don't just start out that way, I believe. So talk about your upbringings with the music, man. Where does it all root from?
Well, it's funny that you said it doesn't just start like that, because I know people in my life that it does. They're just so naturally talented that it's disgusting. And for me, I just have to literally dedicate my life to this and spend hours on top of hours and just so on and so forth to see the progress. So if you see progress from album to album, then that means I put tons and tons of work into it on the sidelines, whether it's in the business or it's in practicing new writing styles, etc. And we'll get into all that later, I'm sure. I always had a love for music. I can remember certain times in my life where I heard the first song from a band. I remember when I played the CD for the first time. It's so nostalgic. And to think about, I don't even remember what the device was called, but some ghetto MP3 player that you put cartridges in. It's like a Game Boy cartridge, and you could buy them at the convenience store with one single on it. And I'd have even then, I'm 5 years old, I'd have a pocket full of them. And it was all the corniest music too. You know what I mean? It was not to say that these guys are corny, but it started out like Backstreet Boys and Nelly, Britney Spears. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously I could only
top 40 type music.
Yeah, and that's all they would tell me anyways, until eventually I was able to finagle my way into music that I liked. Started off with Eminem, and he was really one of the only rappers as a young child that I listened to. I related a lot with him being in a broken home and stuff like that. And then about that time, third grade is when music really started taking off. And that's where I started getting into Blink-182. Excuse me. I remember the first time I was introduced to their live album at a friend's house in the basement. And he let me listen to it on his Walkman. And I just sat there and ignored him for 2 hours. I listened to the whole thing twice and just I told him to go play or whatever,
Yeah.
and like that changed my life. And then I started getting into punk music, pretty heavily, pop punk, punk rock, metal, and I'm a big pop punk fan to this day. Sum 41, No Effects, Blink, Green Day, stuff like that. And once I got into high school or the end of middle school, I would say that's where like rappers came in, Nas, Biggie, Tupac, stuff like that. Then I got really big into strange music and Tech Nine, The Doors. Um, Big fan of Jim Morrison, what he stood for as far as an independent artist. And there's just a million others, but basically I tried to form a band, and I won't say the name in case I ever want to use it again.
Yeah. Fair, yeah.
Because it did have a sick name. I'll give it. That's about all that it had that was good. And I couldn't play the instruments. I tried to play guitar. I tried to play drums, and it's funny, man. When you're a kid, we actually kicked a kid out of the band, one of my close friends, because we thought we were better than him. And one of the kids was good. I wasn't. So like it's just crazy to think like I really had the nerve at one point to think I was better than someone else. And but it started off writing punk songs, and eventually I gave up on that and just started writing rhymes because that was really all I could come up with at the time. At like I'd say like 14. I'd say when like I was really getting heavy smoking weed, that's where like hip hop just like kind of came together, you know what I mean?
Dude, yeah, being in high school and smoking weed, everybody freestyling, that's such a like cliche.
Yeah.
I feel
And
that.
but at the end of the day, I was always like more of kind of a loner. Not that I didn't have friends, but I always felt misunderstood by people. So I would tend to like stay back and just kind of reflect on life.
Yeah.
So write rhymes and record them on like my phone or whatever, and just listen to them, go for walks, and just kind of experiment and just listen to my own words to see what I feel like life's all about. And that's where I would really always end up coming up with just a deeper image of what my life is from the inside and from an outside perspective. You know what I mean? That's how I really gauge what life is, was through lyrics.
Yeah, man. Did you ever feel with like writing lyrics, like did you realize what you were doing? Did you realize it was therapeutic, or was it just something that was fun to you? At
Uh
that age at least, because I feel like as when I was writing at 14, 15, I didn't realize what I was doing. I'm just having fun. But was there like something, were you writing to like get something off your chest, or was it just like out of a passion and just writing? How would you look at it, at least at that age?
it's more of an adrenaline rush. It's
Yeah.
like a high to me, like whether I was rapping fast or just like the whole being able to create something without anybody else involved, like finding an instrumental and writing to it and then recording it and being like, this is mine. Like I created this.
Yeah.
And you just get like sucked into your own world. But I felt like it was always kind of just a rush.
Seriously.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I mean, being able to take nothing from something, I mean, I think, even when you look at like jobs and they hire people and stuff, they always like to push like find something creative to do. It's good for your brain and all this stuff. And I think as artists, we don't realize how good we're doing for ourselves. So when that's why I asked that, because it was something that was brought to my attention. It was like, man, I've always been writing my whole life, so like I never thought of like using the creative side. I always use the creative side. So
Yeah.
it just goes to show like sometimes you overlook what you're doing. So it's just one of those fascinating things. But I wanted to ask you though, because you have such a what some would say a range with your music. How long did it take you to implement pop punk with your rap? Because I feel like that could be tough to start off doing at first, blending sounds. But did it take you a while? How was that?
I think if you look back, there's definitely a few songs. Like there were a few songs on my first album, A Worldly Heaven.
Mm-hmm.
A couple songs on Our Voice is a Weapon, and even one on Nostalgic that was definitely it was definitely preparing for like what was to come, even though I didn't know it at the time. But there was always like rock influence in all of my music, whether it's just small shades of it. But I came to a point in my life where I was unsure if I wanted to make music anymore. I felt like my lyrics weren't being understood. I wasn't being heard. The message was going over people's heads. So I was debating if I should quit. And I remember something one of my mentors said to me. He said, when you make music, always make music of influences that you grew up on that you still hold dear to your heart. And then I looked back and I reflected and I was like, wait, but a majority of my childhood, I was listening to pop punk. So I started researching and I was like, is there anything out there that I could just attempt to do this? And I ended up running into a couple of producers, Phantom, Polar Beats, Balloon Beats. And then I just kind of started writing, started singing, and developed it on my own. It was very natural. It was probably the most natural thing I ever did, which is hard to recreate. When something is so natural, it's hard to recreate, which is why when I go from project to project, I usually try and pick up a different writing process, songwriting process. So you make sure that there's some difference, because it's easy to just follow through and do the same thing without realizing it. You know, they're like, oh, like 8 years, this guy's been working 8 years, and his first album and his sixth album sound the same.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and sometimes people want that. Sometimes people like don't mind if you do the same thing, but sometimes people don't know what type of music they want in the first place. So I think it's okay to switch things up. I think it's okay to try new things, because I think at the end of the day, we don't know what we might make, and people don't know what they want to consume. So why not just go for it?
Yeah, so I kind of feel like it's almost vaguely familiar. It's like there's some familiarity to it, but there's also some contrast. So think of it this way. If I put you in my house to record for a week, I'm like, oh, I'm going to have you come by my house, write however many songs you can, knock it out. Okay. Mm-hmm. You're going to automatically come up with something different than writing in your room, just because of the atmosphere. Not that my house is anything special, but if you pick somebody up, like basically, if you're in a different surrounding area, you're going to pick up different energy. You're going to pick up different atmosphere. So I try to take the best of my songwriting styles and implement different ones on each project, because then I know that I'm automatically going to get some contrast.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's true. I don't usually think about the writing, how different writing processes can be, because, you know, like whenever I had to write something on the spot, like, or it's like in the studio, it's like, oh man, you want to hop on this band, write a verse, like it always feels like it's just a little different than when like someone sends me a beat and I'm where I am now writing it. Like you definitely get a different energy and a different vibe. Like I don't know how people write songs in a crowded studio. Like I've always seen that. I'm like, I'd get the hell out of there and go into my car or go outside or something. Like, you know, just you never do that stuff. How do you do in those? How do you do in those certain environments? Are you good with like a crowded studio? Do you want it just to be you and the engineer? How has your vibe been with that?
Well, I think it also goes to the point of, you know, at work, if I'm working, I try to keep my work separate from my music. And I think that kind of reflects into the studio as well. I don't typically like to um, work while there's other people in the studio that are unrelated to the song at hand.
Yeah.
Um, but then again, lately I've been trying to flip that for that reason, because I was like, okay, now I'm feeling more confident about it. Maybe we'll just pick up that energy of having multiple people around and going at it like that. Although I'm not writing on the spot there. Like, I'll be coming to the studio with other people there. But there was this one time where I was recording, and there was it's like an open door policy kind of studio. So somebody was just sitting there in front of me, and I seen him out of the corner of my eye, and I was finishing up, but I almost asked him if he could just back up a hair. It's like, just so he could get out of my vision. Like, it's okay if you sit there and listen, but to watch me, that kind of like threw me off a little bit. But I was like, you know what? I'm almost done. It's fine. I'll just look the other way.
Yeah, no, it's fair, and the older I get, the more I believe in like energies and who's this person, what's that person. If you get a certain vibe from people, it just can throw everything off. So I understand, like, especially with the music, you want to make sure it's all right. I mean, we're all very passionate about it. We all want to make sure it all comes out correct. So, but do you would you say you're a perfectionist? Or would you say you try to not overthink things? How do you feel about this, man?
Yeah.
The reaction.
Yeah. You're reminding me something. I keep talking about the fact that I would like to research a little bit more on perfectionism. The documentary of Machine Gun Kelly that he put out, Life in Pink, that was something that I took from that, about his perfectionism and how it affected his family and how it affected his career. I mean, in that case, it affected it in a good way, but then again, it really affected his family in a negative way. I noticed that perfectionism is like a drug for me, and it begins to play with my manic tendencies. So I definitely overthink, I overcritique, but I mean, it's for a greater purpose. I think learning the trick of the trade is, can you separate? Are you able to find a balance? Are you able to find the peace? Because for me, I get very addicted to it. So I'll listen to the album 2 times all the way through in a row, just as I'm on a car ride, like to work.
Yeah.
Like, I'll listen to it there and I'll listen to it back, and then I'll do it 4 days in a row. And it's like, then you're on autopilot and you're not really living. You're so focused on this thing that you really can't see anything around it. And that's scary, because there's no vigilance to that.
You just get lost in the sauce.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm working on. I accepted the fact that I'm a perfectionist, and I'm actually hoping to learn a little bit about perfectionism as a whole, and where I play a role in that, because it does kind of connect with my mental health issues. So there's a reason behind all of this.
Of course, it's always a reason.
Yeah. So as I begin to learn more about mental health, more about myself and how they interact, and then perfectionism as its own separate thing and how it includes me, that's how you get an awareness of who you are and how you can battle these things.
Yeah, that's real stuff, man. And it's funny you mentioned just perfectionism, just in general, because some of the greatest artists are perfectionists, but then some of the greatest artists are also some of the chillest with it. Like, they just don't even try. So it's like, there's not necessarily a wrong thing about perfectionism, But at the same time, like people who are could definitely tell you, yeah, you probably don't want to be a perfectionist. Or, yeah, but they're the good and bad with it. Like it's just all about being aware of who you are and picking out why you do the things you do. And I think that's just a real mature way of looking at it. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's just real stuff, man. I think more people definitely need to hear that. You had mentioned Jim Morrison. He's somebody I actually want to learn about more. The Doors in general. So that's why when I saw this quote on your page, it really stood out to me. He says, in the quote that you posted, it says, "Expose yourself to your deepest fear. After that, you are free." What was it about that quote that made you had to post that, man? Because that is some really powerful stuff. Like, whew, whew, it's powerful.
Well, what did you get from it?
Damn. Well, I mean, a saying that I've been feeling really recently is, the truth will set you free, but first it'll make you mad. And I think a lot of people gotta dig into themselves and really look into the core of who they are, because if you don't do that, you'll never truly understand why you do the things you do and why the way you are. And, we're all works in progress. Every day we have to dissect ourselves and figure out new things. But so many men, bro, are just walking around with all this baggage, and they don't realize it's messing with their health. And they wonder why men die young, before women. Because they just don't. They be brushing off all this stuff, and
Yeah.
it's just nasty. That's what I got from that. And I felt a lot happier when I've faced my fears. I've recently done that, and like people be seeing how I post on social media and doing things. It's the reason I brought the podcast back. It's the reason why I'm moving better, because I've accepted and faced everything, and now it just feels like I see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Can you read that one more time for me?
One more time for them.
Thank you.
One more time for them. Expose yourself to your deepest fear. After that, you are free. Yeah.
Well, there's also another quote that says, "The only thing to fear is fear itself."
Yeah, that's another hard one.
So it's funny. I wrote a song. It's called "Life's a Gift," and it's a newer song. It'll be released in the soon future.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
and I say, "What's it like to be free?" Well, what I got out of that is, how do we find freedom? What is it like to be free? Are any of us truly free? Maybe. I know I didn't feel free in the moment, but I knew that I was seeking a breakthrough.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of underlying issues that we all have, whether we realize it or not. So it takes time. When you're talking about baggage and you're talking about issues that you have, fear, insecurities, we block those things out for so long that, think about it. Think we keep pushing it down and down and down and down and down, all the way down here on the back of your head. We have this little insecurity back here. But now this is our brain, and we're filling it with all these other things. So it's just going, filling it all up. Now we have to keep digging till we can even find that thing. Yeah. So I'm thinking to myself, well, what am I afraid of? What are the things in my life that I need to get over? And that's the answer to the question, how I find freedom. It's facing those fears and accepting those insecurities, accepting that they're a part of you, and in some way, shape, or form, finding a way to use that to your advantage. If you can take your imperfections and blend it into this new person where those things that are looked as negative, you use as a strength, then you're kind of putting a protection over yourself, because there's nothing left to fear at that point.
Yeah. That's some
anxiety. People struggle with anxiety so much because it's something, usually people have anxiety for things that they have no control over.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why is that? It's because when, and it plays with your ego a little bit, but when it's in my hands, I feel like I'm going to be all right.
Yeah.
But when it's not in my hands and I have no control over it, then there's some kind of chance, there's risk that comes into play. And anytime there's risk, and you know that it could go either way, that causes confusion, that could cause fear. Mm-hmm. So that's what I think. And I think transparency and vulnerability, that was something that was big about that quote. It's like when you come out and, you know, you look at 8 Mile, at the end of 8 Mile, when he came out and said, yeah, I am this, I am that.
Mm-hmm. I do live in a trailer with my mom.
Yeah. What happened? The guy had nothing to say. But what if he was facing himself? Mm-hmm. Think about if he was rapping against himself, that person would still have nothing to say because it's all been exposed. Mm-hmm. So then there's nothing left to fight back.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a metaphor I can use, a hip hop metaphor.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, well, that's why that scene resonates so hard, because it's a lesson. You gotta face those things that bother you, because if you don't, someone's always gonna have something over you. Like, whether that's yourself or another, like, it's just always gonna be that thing. And so, you know, it was just one of those, you know, quotes that, you know, I just definitely wanted to shed some light on, man. And Vinny, if you don't mind me asking, man, I don't know if I'm surprised I don't know this, but how old are you, man?
29.
29. See, this is like the thing, man. Like, I'm getting older, and so, like, when I hear you talk, I'm like, see, this is the maturity I'm, like, trying to, like, show people. It's like, yeah. You know, I just feel like I'm at a point in my age where, like, I'm seeing people I'm around just, like, catching up, or will catch up, or will never. You know, you just, this is the age where you start to see it, because I'm at that point right now where I'm just thinking and feeling different. And so I feel like it's just part of growing up, man. You just start to break things down and just try to become better, because we're all just dumbasses when we were in our teens, you know. And like, that's all I think about when I'm 26. I'm just like, man, I was a dumbass from like 18 to 23. Like, like, what the fuck was I thinking that whole time? Like, that's literally what I think. Like, it's really funny, you know. So it's just, you know, that quote was just something I had to ask you, man. And I'm glad you're very honest about the way you answered that. It's just, you know, it's very commendable, man. My next question here, I gotta ask you. I've always been a strong supporter of the Christian rap movement, regardless if a rapper wants to put themselves under that bracket or not. But you know, when you don't curse in your music, and there's mention of God, it's, you know, people will be like, all right, that's a Christian rapper, even if you don't claim it or say it. What do you think it is, man? Why do you think Christian rap gets a bad rap? It's always bothered me, because the music is great from a lot of these artists. So what do you think it is? Is it too preachy? You think people are just scared of that, like deep music? What is it?
This is tough. Like, and I don't know if I can't really answer for anyone else but myself.
Yeah, for yourself.
Honest,
yeah, for sure.
I don't know why, but for my own thing is, I know when I started, when I was rapping and I was preaching and I was doing a lot of stuff in church, bringing that from like church to people outside of church, I look back and I realize I was over the top. I was force feeding it. And over time, I've found a middle ground where it's like, how can I still remain true, remain spiritual, but break down other issues? Because at the end of the day, you know, like somebody taking care of his wife or his child and not being a deadbeat, that's spiritual. Like, that takes spiritual principles to be able to maintain something like that. When a man can take care of his house and show respect, honor, love, those things are spiritual. Like, this is what God has called us to do. So, I would do a lot of quotes from the Bible, which I've translated into my own language now, I would say, where I would still kind of take those spiritual principles and create music around it. But I would say from my own perspective, I know I overdid it a little bit. And I look back and thinking as a fan, I don't know if I would have been engaged by this. So if I wouldn't be engaged by myself, how could I expect someone else?
Oh yeah.
And over time, you learn the tricks of the trade. You learn ways to do it in a more subtle manner. But with
Some
politics,
candy.
religion, huh?
I said medicine and the candy, huh? No, I'm playing.
Yeah. And I mean, same thing with politics. You know what I mean? Like, it's very one-sided either way. So I could see that if you're not, I mean, it does put you in a box. Like when I was doing it, I felt like when I was with Pathway Movement, we were somewhat of pioneers in the Christian rap world in the Massachusetts area anyways.
Now what's Pathway Movement for? I'm not too familiar.
This was a group I was in back in 2015.
Oh, okay. Word.
And because at that time churches weren't really allowing rap music. They said it was the devil's music.
Really? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. So some doors were closed. They called us devil worshippers, and that's only some of it. I mean, a lot of them were very supportive, and I will say, the most impact I've ever had in seeing people's lives like transformed was through doing church events. Yeah. I mean, the power of God was present in some of these showcases, some of the small ones, and honestly, the biggest shows I've ever done were church related in certain ways. So I'm not taking back. Yeah, and I'm not taking anything out of that. You know what I mean? Like that experience definitely molded me to be the person I am. But I could see how it puts you in a box, and if somebody doesn't believe in that, then they already feel like they're pushed out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just funny to me because it's like a lot of the music is like, like a rapper who's not Christian will still mention God, but it's not considered Christian rap because they may curse or it's still some vulgarity in it. But then as soon as you get rid of the vulgarity, all of a sudden you're a Christian rapper. Like especially if you're consistent with it through your whole catalog. It's just interesting. And I think the smarter listener can look at a Lecrae or a Toby Nwigwe or an NF and not think to themselves, "Oh, it's Christian rap. Never, forget everything, regardless of how good it sounds." It's just interesting. It's just always blown my mind that people like it's just so in their face about that. It's just
I also think that when something touches on a belief, it really is hard to separate from your belief. And even if your belief is the same that they're discussing, when you see differences, like here the judgment come. Here's where the judgment comes. So it's like, oh, well, this person is claiming this, but he does this or he looks like this, and all it is judgment. It's just crazy. Yeah. And
it's like when you set a standard for yourself, people are gonna try to even go higher with it. Whereas like if you're coming out the gate like just being all like just on some, I guess, bad lifestyle type where you're talking about negative type of way of living, then no one has a standard for you because look at you portraying yourself in such a way. No one cares if you do X, Y, and Z because you're not saying you're this. But like when you are a Christian rapper, it's not like you're saying you're better than anyone. It's just a very interesting situation.
And Path, who was the mentor that I was speaking of earlier, who was the leader of Pathway Movement at the time, he had a song called Obedient Rebel, and it was obedient to God and a rebel to the world. And I think people forget that, like, to following God is rebelling. You
Yeah.
know, people think it's like, uh, what do they call it? With the sheep, they say don't be like they say don't be a sheep,
Yeah.
but then
Yeah.
again, like God says to be a sheep, which they mean two different things in the whole thing, the whole nine. But it's crazy because like the things that have led me to God were drug use, were being abandoned, were the pain and like broken relationships. That stuff's not pretty.
No. Not at
You know
all.
what I mean?
Not
Like
not 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 at all.
all
No.
the darkest things in my life. So that's why I have like a personal connection to like my higher power, is because I felt comfort in my darkest times in life,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah,
know?
man. That's, let them sit on that one, man. You feel me? I think that one might go over some people's heads, man. So I don't want to touch on the Christian rap topic for too long because I feel like I could talk about it for a while. 'Cause it's always something I've been passionate about because it's just like some of my favorite songs have come from those artists. Some of my like biggest oh my god moments have come from those artists. So like it just always blows my mind with the Sigma on it. But I highly advise y'all, if y'all hit me up if you want me to send you some stuff that's labeled Christian rap. I'll show you that it's not what you think. It's really not. Like it's just a perception. That's all I can say.
The thing is though, you're open minded, and what I get from you, where you said, I'm wondering how old this person is and this and that. I'm starting to reflect on my life. You remain teachable. Like you're a very kind of quiet person for the most part until it's necessary to speak. You
Yeah.
wait your turn, you know what I mean? And like in case, unless you want to jump out of the gate and just like rebel, but for the most part, you reflect, you listen, and everything you add something to the conversation at hand. You're not just wilding out, you're not just throwing your opinions. Like it's all methodical, you know?
Yeah. Try to
So
move methodical, man. I think that's the best way to go about it. Is I used to not be that way. I definitely used to just throw shit on the wall, just like fuck it, So I definitely used to be that way. I'm not gonna lie, man. But you try to turn new leaves. You get older, you learn, and just keep it pushing. That's all you can do. So, let's just move on to another thing here, man. The latest single, "Disappear." I'm
have
loving
you
the.
heard it?
I think so. I think I've heard of this one, man. I think so. Let's break down for the people how "Disappear" came about, man.
I mean, back to Jim Morrison for a second. So
Yeah,
I don't know if
yeah,
you know, but did you know that Strange Music got their name from the Doors?
yep, yeah. And I see. I know that. I know Tech Nine really looked up to Jim Morrison and the logo. It's all rooted from him. So
Yeah. I've been a Tech fan since I don't know, like early high school. Anyways, it's definitely been over a decade. Um, I've been a big follower of him, Chris Calico, all Strange Music. I opened up for Mayday a couple times, opened up for Cess Crew a couple times, and it's always been a dream of mine to work with Chris Calico. So when he put on that contest last year, within the past year, I ended up writing something for that and submitting it. I didn't win, but he put out an exclusive package for the people that entered the contest, which was a limited amount of people. And basically, some people got some beat, some got another, and I was able to, get some exclusive material from Chris Calico and Wishmaster Beats. And I upgraded the package, was able to upgrade for stems and vocals, and and then to have you on it just brought it to life.
I'm
Um,
really I'm really glad you hit me up for that one, man. I'm always flattered when anyone wants to work with me. But when you sent that one, I was like, oh wow, like this is a good one. You know, I could, and you sent me something like it was like a recording from your phone on it. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't even like anything official. And I still was like, yo, this gonna be something. I can't. It ain't ready for this. Kept it on the low and everything.
Yeah, and I tried to go at it kind of like a mix of like hip hop, soul, and even like a mix of alternative and country with the songwriting process of the verse. And I felt like it brought something just totally unique to, well, I'll just say as the collection of what I'm working on right now. And that song is a piece of that collection. So even still, that song stands out on the record.
Yeah.
I think it always will. And also, I was in a very dark place, like isolated. And when I heard the words, like, I just want to disappear. And I was like, you and me both.
Yeah,
You know?
I just got goosebumps you saying that, man. It's powerful stuff, and I've said that like 3 times already. But it's I just a song like that I didn't realize like until it was released. I was like, dang, like I'm sharing a song, and I'm like, I'm wondering if people listen to the lyrics to this song, man, like, cause it's like, we're getting our talk off, we're really trying to talk about that part of the mind that a lot of times people try to stray away from, and not pretend like life is roses all the time.
Right. And once again, it's exposing those fears, and I think it makes for beautiful, powerful music that's going to make an impact in this world. I mean, people just hide their feelings nowadays. So when you look at it, I mean, who's the stronger person? The person that's willing to put all that out on the table. I know for me, I'm a Cancer. What are you?
I'm a Gemini, so
You're a Gemini.
yeah.
So I'm a very
2 sides.
yeah, I'm a very emotional person. Plus I'm Italian, so I'm very sensitive, very emotional. And I'm an empath. So I just feel things so deeply. And I think really that's what helps me with the writing process of being able to be transparent and vulnerable with a song like Disappear, and not force the message, but you can hear when you hear the words, it's not just a song, it's the life behind it, the memories behind it, the trials and tribulations behind it.
Yeah, bro. One thing I definitely gotta say about this song is that I definitely addressed some things on this song that I usually don't mention in my music, and I have yet to delve in even deeper. But when I heard your verse, man, it just, it let me know. I was like, shit, if Vinny gonna come to the table like that, then I got it myself. So, just discussing mental health and medication and all that stuff is stuff that like I have yet to dive into. But for this song, it was like, I gotta talk my talk. So yeah, man. Just this is one of those things. If y'all haven't heard Disappear yet, it's the latest single by Vinny, and I highly recommend you check it out. Once again, man, I appreciate you hitting me up for that one. Seriously.
Yeah. Nah, I couldn't find anyone better.
Thank you.
I tried.
Searching through it. Miramax it is. Oh, that's funny, man. That's funny. On the topic of more just like deep things and life changing things, you got engaged, man. Love's a beautiful thing, ain't it? I have been single for most of my life. I've had some stints, here and there, but I've always been a single guy. The older I get, though, man, I see people getting engaged and married and stuff nowadays, and I'm like, man, love's pretty beautiful. That's never a thought I used to have, but I've been thinking of that now, and I've always thought to myself, like, what would being engaged or having a girlfriend do to my music? And so I gotta ask you, man, what has getting engaged done for the trajectory of your sound? What is it? I mean, I know obviously it's changed your life in many other ways, but this is essentially a music podcast. You're a music artist. What has it done for the art?
I think it goes back to what I said earlier about being in a different environment, experiencing new things, different feelings is automatically going to change something in the songwriting process. I think it definitely encouraged me to follow through with the new style of music that I was making, because let's face it, my fiance doesn't really like hip hop too much anyways. you know?
Fair. And y'all can't like everything. Like y'all
Yeah.
can't have the same interests, man.
Yeah.
I think that helps with a relationship if you guys don't like everything like alike. I think it's healthy. So
Yeah, we're very similar, and then certain things are we're opposite.
yeah,
And that's a beautiful thing, because she puts me onto music, I put her onto music. And let's be honest, like, living with her, being with her, and she has a lot of, girlfriends. She has a sister. We hang out with her mother and stuff like that. So there's a lot of women around. And I say that to say this. I've been able to express myself in different ways being surrounded by more women, because, like, women don't judge you as much when it comes to that, especially when you're with,
opening up.
yeah, and especially when you're with a girl. You know what I mean? It's not like there's no oh, this kid's like a wimp or whatever it is. You know what I mean? But it's like there's not as much judgment, I feel. So I'm able to express myself, and I feel like I let go of certain things about being a man that should have never been there to begin with.
That toxic masculinity, dog. I think
Yeah,
society's doing better to work out some of the things that men have tried that strive for that really isn't cool, and it's just detrimental to your well being. So I think it's really dope to hear you say this.
yeah. So I don't know if I was able to paint a picture about that, but
Yeah, I feel you.
but yeah, I think that all those things combined, it helped me express myself in ways to find myself in a deeper way, to accept things about myself, to learn about myself. Because I mean, let's face it, women are deep creatures. Like, they'll help you see things that a guy wouldn't be able to,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Yeah, and I
But
believe women are just better with their emotions than men. I really do. Like, I
they're
feel like
also
men
smarter.
are, huh?
They're also smarter too.
Yeah, but I think being emotionally smarter just makes you smarter. Like I genuinely believe that. I'm not saying this to win some brownie points from anywhere. I swear, I've been saying this. I really have.
So I would say that's the biggest thing. You know what I mean? She enjoys that style of music. It's definitely helped me see who I am, and also grow as a person. When you care about someone and you want to be better for them, and even find reasons to be better for yourself, inner growth is what's going to, if you're growing, your music should grow with it. So here's something for the artist to chew on. If you're growing and your music's not, and you feel complacent or empty, think about if that's the reason.
Mm.
If you're growing, your music should grow with it. If you're not growing, well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
We all have to have some inner growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's why it's so important to step away. I don't think it's like work, keep going. It's like sometimes you gotta stop and live a little. Sometimes you gotta just like smell the air, go outside, like, talk to some people. I think sometimes the whole work and don't sleep, I that whole mentality is just so stupid to me. Like I've benefited so well from resting. I've benefited so well from just going on vacation. Like, and I've paid attention to those things and what it's done for me, man. And you saying that's just real stuff. I think artists sometimes just have to like step back sometimes. Doesn't hurt.
Yeah, and it's different when you're still like in the party stages of your life, where you're used to staying up all night. Like, eventually when you become responsible, and you're taking care of a household, well, you can't just like spend your weekends up all night, getting no rest, then going to work, like intense work for the week. You're not going to make it. You're going to burn out, especially in the field that we work in. She works in nursing. I work in mental health and addiction. And even with, not that I really get the proper rest that I should, but even when you are resting, you're still susceptible to burnout.
Yeah, yeah, for
And
sure.
with the wedding planning, making music, going to work,
The
a new
wedding planning. No, I'm
job,
kidding.
stuff like that. Like it
I'm
just
sorry.
makes your mind go
I just heard.
crazy.
I just heard wedding planning is just. That's all I've heard.
Not that I'm doing too much of it. She is, and I'll give her that, But
Yeah, still though, yeah. But I totally hear you. Burnout is the worst. I've had it. I've had my stints with that with this podcast. It's the it was it was a lot of work here. This is a one man team running this thing, bro. I don't got when I say we, I'm just talking about me with this podcast. You know what I'm saying? And eventually we'll get help with this, but it's just you got to find somebody who's on the same page as me. I don't want to hire somebody and then 3 weeks later they're just like, oh, never mind. I'm not for that. So, but yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the burnout. I think more artists need to hear that. But yeah, man, I know you got some new music you're working on. You may or may not have shown me something. Talk about the new upcoming project that you got working on, man. What do you want to share about it right now?
well, as you know, the last album that I did was called Shooting Stars and Broken Halos, and
Great
it
album,
was,
man.
thank you. It
Oh,
was
seriously.
majority pop punk alternative with like a droplet of some hip hop. And I wanted to expand on that. You know, and real quick, just to go back to what you said about the engagement inspiring my music and stuff like that. Fix Me was a song that I wrote for my fiance for her birthday a couple years ago. So that song is very meaningful to me. And Oblivion was a song that I wrote about my mother's relationship, my relationship with my mother. Haunted House was the relationships of my cousins that are in active addiction.
Mm.
So the whole story was really a man that has addiction problems, struggles with mental health, and is looking for love. Where is he going to find this love? It's a concept album. The first 10 songs are. And that's a brilliant question. Very simple, but how do you find love?
Mm-hmm.
Where does it come from? And basically, not to spoil the ending, but here it goes anyways. He finds that love in God, which opened him up to be able to accept that love, and then not only love himself, but he loves himself, and then is able to express that love.
Yeah.
That's really what that last album was about. I never really got to talk about it because of the pandemic. Um, but Shooting Stars and Broken Halos, it's basically when you look at somebody and you see all their like you see this great personality, and you don't see any flaws when you see certain people for the first time. And then through the course of the relationship that you have, it doesn't have to be an intimate relationship. It could be any kind of
Yeah.
relationship that you just realize, wow, like this person has more flaws than anyone I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they
Mm-hmm.
just handle it well. They have something about them that they're able to kind of separate that in their life, like in a very professional way or whatever it is. You know what I mean? And just kind of curve or hide how much pain and toxicity that they may have about themselves. So that's kind of where I got Shooting Stars and Broken Halos, because all of us are shooting stars,
Mm-hmm.
and all of us have a broken halo.
Mm.
We're all work in progress. We all need to be healed. So that's where I got that. Now I won't tell you what the name of the next project is yet because it's basically untitled for now.
That's good. Yeah.
But I will say it's already been extended since I talked to you like a couple days ago.
That's great.
It was also another kind of bonus track quarantine type record that was mostly solo for a while. And then I decided to work with some people to kind of just tie everything together to give it more of a family energy, you could say,
Yeah.
if I'm making any sense right now. A lot of it was more me as the author, um, just an artistic, personal solo material.
Mm.
And maybe I just felt lonely, but I felt like, all right, now it's time to add some people into the mix. So you have a couple features, you have some musicians, and to give you an idea of what to expect, I will tell you Disappears on there. So you can expect something heavier than the last one, softer, and more diverse.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. Think
So
hey, well, it's good
not
you're going.
sure.
It's good. It sounds like you're just stepping it up with this project, and I think that's all you can do as an artist like yourself is just how do we get across a certain message but do it in a better way. And it
Mm.
sounds like you got a master plan at work, bro. So I'm really looking forward to what you got here. Is there a gauge on when we're gonna get this project, or are we not ready to announce a date?
There's definitely no date,
Yeah.
but what's the date today?
September.
September
Today we're
13th.
recording this on the 13th. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is dropping on the
Should
20th.
be
So
I should be done. I should be done in a month, and then another month after that. So I'd say somewhere in November.
wow, nice. Yeah, that's good, man. I don't think people realize how hard it is to book sessions and get things planned. Like sometimes, like these things aren't in your control. Like you probably want it out sooner, but things take time. It takes time to plan this music, bro.
Yeah, I mean it was extended kind of last minute, but for very good and valid reasons that will only improve as a whole. So I'm happy to do it. I'll be releasing something sooner than that, just to for the hip hop heads that may think that I can't rap anymore or have missed it. And I didn't want them to think I forgot about them. So I got something coming very soon
Yeah,
that
yeah.
should hopefully hold you over until it comes out.
It's so funny you say that because when the Leeds Edutainment tape dropped and I heard that shit, I was like, "Yo, man, Vinny is spitting." I can't even remember that I saw you that time. I was like, "Bro, what was that, man? You were going off." Like I was like, "You gotta remind these dudes, bro." So that's funny you say that, man. I think it's just dope that you've mastered like your rapping ability, but you got the pop punk side. It's just like it's those two blends that I don't see too often, man. I think that's what makes your vibe special, man. I really do.
Yeah. And next year, I'm hoping to really start working with a lot more musicians and just expanding the sound in many different diverse ways. I don't really know what to expect. I can tell you this though. Um, there's a couple other side projects with collaborations happening.
Nice.
One with D Rock and Jay Faith.
Hey, shout out to those guys, man. Good
That's a
dudes.
three-way collaboration project that we're working on. And another with a close friend of mine, Bobby Snare. Um, I'm very grateful for him. You know, he survived a tragedy, and he's still alive. Like it's amazing if you hear his story. And he performed at my release party, and he's an incredible musician working through rehab to get his body back in shape again. It's gonna take some time, but me and him are also building a side project as well. So you get a solo project from me, and then next year you get a couple side projects, and wherever I decide to take it from there.
Hell yeah, man. Vinny, sounds like you're turning it up a notch on him, dog, and I love to hear it, bro. I really do, man. We're at the end of this episode, man. I know we could chop it up a lot more. Obviously, we had to cut these conversations short. You know what I mean? Because we don't want things to run over too long. But before we wrap this up, man, is there anything you want to plug or any good ending message that you want to leave? You've said some really dope things, some gems already. But if there is there anything you want to plug or say for the people before we wrap this one up?
I would just go back to that fear thing that you mentioned earlier. It's just like, don't be afraid to expose yourself. Don't be afraid to be who you are. And if you don't know who you are, like sometimes I deal with the identity crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Continue to ask yourself them difficult questions, to find out exactly who you are, to understand yourself. If you understand yourself better, it's easier for others to understand you. So I'll end with this. Just don't be afraid to believe in something bigger than yourself. Because I know for me, sometimes I look in the mirror and I feel like I'm this big. And if I trust in this, then I'm in trouble. I need something greater. I need a power that is greater than me. And I just encourage anyone out there that's listening to ask themselves those questions and seek what you believe in and who you are.
Yeah. To your point, man, I did that and it made me feel a lot better, y'all. I'm gonna tell you that right now. It's I feel like I've turned a new leaf because of it. So like, when you saying that, it's just like I'm telling y'all, man, just think about it. Think about it. That's all I'm gonna say. Vinny, thank you very much for being on the show, man. Where can the people reach you on the social medias?
Vincent Tesoro on all platforms, Tesoro, and Vincent_Tesoro on Instagram. That's basically it.
Awesome. Well, y'all heard it, man. Vincent Tesoro, thank you very much for being on the show, man. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in to TempahZone Podcast. We are back. We're going to keep it rolling every Tuesday, maybe every Thursday. We'll see. Yeah, make sure you tune into the next episode, y'all, and have a good one, all right? Peace.
See ya. Thank you.